Pennsylvania, near the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, again called Raven Rock. And Raven Rock is the alternate National Military Command Center or Communication Center. If the Pentagon is the primary place where military operations are conducted from, Raven Rock is the backup location. Now, these two are worth noting, and we have no confirmation that they are in any way related to the plane crash near Pittsburgh, but they are in the vicinity of that plane crash in Pittsburgh and possibly could have been targets. Tom?
Thank you very much, NBC's Campbell Brown. As these stories begin to unfold throughout the day, we're still operating really on two planes. It is surrealistic, but at the same time, it is one of the darkest days in America as we realize that this country has been attacked in an act of terrorist war in the heart of the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., and also in New York City, and then a plane that was driven into the ground outside of Pittsburgh. We believe that that is the end of the attacks for now, but no one is sure because we don't know who is responsible. Let's go to NBC's Jim Miklashevsky, who was in the Pentagon when that plane was driven into the Pentagon today. He heard a small explosion. Don Rumsfeld wouldn't get out at first, but I gather he too has been taken to a secure location.
Actually, Tom, what Don Rumsfeld did, according to Pentagon officials, is he was in his office on the opposite side of the building from where you see where the plane impacted, and he ran to the area where the fire and the fireball was still engulfing much of the Pentagon. And according to Pentagon officials, he actually assisted in helping some of the injured leave the building before he then returned to his office and then went straight to the National Military Command Center, again on the opposite side of the Pentagon, to monitor events where he now remains. Tom, this airplane that ran into the Pentagon, it happened within the hour from the two planes that ran into the World Trade Center, but it took a full 4 hours before firefighters and rescue workers could actually contain the flames and fire inside, so it was safe enough for them to enter the building. And that was about an hour ago when we were told that rescue workers did enter parts of the building where you can see where the plane sliced through the Pentagon. Now, it was actually fortuitous that the plane hit in this area, if that can be described as fortunate at all. As you see, Tom, the plane sliced through the building. It came in at an angle, flipped over on its right side, and hit actually at about the first and second floors. The third, fourth, and fifth floors were still intact immediately after the blast, but then later collapsed upon themselves. But to the right of that devastated area, you see there's not much fire damage. That's because that part of the building had recently been renovated with reinforced blast walls to prevent a kind of bomb attack, not an airplane attack, of course, but to prevent a bomb attack, and reinforced firewalls on the inside after the bombing at Oklahoma City. When the remodeling of the Pentagon was begun, it was decided to do it with extra reinforcement after Oklahoma City. Now, this area to the left, where you see most of the fire damage, that area was due to be remodeled shortly. And fortunately, a large number of those offices had already been evacuated. Now, there are confirmed dead, many injured. We don't know the exact number yet. And as rescue workers dig through that rubble, certainly the death toll here is going to climb. But really, it could have probably been much worse had this area on the right not been reinforced and the area on the left not been abandoned, really, to permit the redevelopment or reconstruction work that was to go underway. Now, according to eyewitnesses, it was an American Airlines 757 that came sort of from the direction of National Airport, and it just cleared the highway, which is adjacent, the highway ramps, which is adjacent to the Pentagon, but then it came in, and as it approached the Pentagon, almost at ground level, did a very hard right turn and actually flipped on its side and then sliced into the Pentagon on the first and second floors we see there. Tom?
Thank you very much, NBC Jim Miklashevsky. In both that flight and the first flight, the American Airlines flight that hit here in New York, had similar patterns. They were flying at very, very low altitude, 1,000 feet according to some New York witnesses. And Bob Kerr said earlier that over Lafayette Park, just outside the White House, they saw a plane go over at a very low altitude that was out of the normal flight pattern for Washington, D.C. So obviously this had been well thought out. That goes without saying. The question is, what happened in the cockpit? Did the terrorists take the controls and drive those planes into the World Trade Center as well as into the Pentagon? And where was that plane that went down in Pennsylvania headed? Why did it go down there? Well, these were all flights that were originally headed for California. We don't have the tapes, obviously. The black box may be able to tell us something. This is the second plane going that you can see entering from right to left there that hit the second Trade Center tower at the World Trade Center here in New York, causing that enormous fireball. That is the first tower to go down. It was hit a little bit lower. It went down first, and the second one went down as well. So there are so many unanswered questions here. All across America, we know that people are watching with horror and with a great deal of apprehension. There are lessons to be learned from past experiences. Oklahoma City comes immediately to mind. Assistant Fire Chief was John Hanson, who became a very familiar figure and a friend to a lot of us, who's been through all of this. He's now retired from the department in Oklahoma City. John, first of all, this whole business of getting people out of the rubble in New York City and in the Pentagon, but the larger lessons about what we should learn about how we move on from here. What did you learn in Oklahoma City?
You know, Tom, that we can in fact do that. We were, stung, we were wounded, but we're not going to be defeated, and we won't in this one. You've heard the President, Mayor Giuliani, the Governor of New York, all make the comments that we're going to stick together and get through this. We've got to be patient. We've got an incredible rescue effort that's going to take possibly months. You know, our rescue effort in Oklahoma City took 17 days. This, with the widespread destruction, will probably go into the months. We've just got to be patient and pull together and just take this head on.
There's so much that we learn from Oklahoma City as well in terms of rescue organization and rescue techniques.
You know, Tom, we had a team from the great state of New York in Oklahoma City. After Oklahoma City, the nation's fire service, FEMA, we all got together, reevaluated what we were doing. The New York City Fire Department is as prepared as any department in the country to handle this. With the support of FEMA and the rest of us around the country, we're going to help those great men and women get through this, just as they helped us back in 1995.
John, tell me, just from a personal point of view, where were you when you heard what had happened today, and what was your first reaction?
Tom, I was at home, and I heard about the devastation during the Today Show, watching Katie and Matt, and it just felt like I'd been gut punched, as the rest of the country. I stopped for a moment, looked at the video we saw on the Today Show, and just really couldn't believe it at a point, and then reflected on Oklahoma City and knew that we all had to go to work, band together, and help each other get through this, and we will. That's the beauty about America. We'll pull together and we'll get through this and send a message to the cowards who perpetrated this great crime against our nation.
Thanks so much. John Hanson from Oklahoma City, who went through his own trial by fire and shares with us today some of the lessons after the Murrah Federal Building was bombed, and he became such a familiar and reassuring figure to so many of us. We have some information that I can bring you up to date on now. The mayor here in New York said that 1,500 people have been brought to the Liberty State Park area, that is in the lower end of Manhattan, for those of you who come here from time to time, not too far from where the ferries go back and forth to Staten Island and over to the Statue of Liberty. 600 have been brought to the New York City area hospitals. 150 of those are in critical condition. New Jersey hospitals have not yet reported in. It's fair to say that that's about 2,100 altogether. Those are the people who have been recovered. We can only guess at how many hundreds more are trapped in the rubble on the ground or in what is left of the buildings. 30 patients, this is in the Washington, D.C. area, 30 people have been brought to Arlington to the hospital at the VA Center in Arlington. 13 have been admitted, 8 are in intensive care, 4 are on ventilators. They have discharged 6 patients so far. There are a variety of injuries, blast injuries and smoke inhalation, which is always a huge problem. Burns, fractures, several patients are critically ill, perhaps 8 altogether. There have been no fatalities brought to that hospital, the VA Center in Arlington, although earlier the Pentagon did say that there were people who were killed in the attack on the Pentagon. St. Mary's Hospital in Hoboken, back to New York again, 450 people have been brought at the Hoboken PATH station triage center. PATH is a train that goes underneath the river over to New Jersey. and so they were treating him right there as a triage center. Mostly minor injuries. Of those injuries are cuts, bruises, burns, broken bones, and so on. So that's a quick update on what is going on at LAX, which is closed down, as are all airports across America. NBC Shelley Smith reports authorities may soon detonate a suspicious device found at the airport. On a day like this, there are any number of suspicious devices and calls that are made by demented people claiming that there's a bomb on board a plane or a bus or in a school somewhere. We're trying to track those down. There have been no other incidents so far as we know across America beside those that we have been witness to here at the World Trade Center, at the Pentagon, and of course that plane that went into the ground outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. NBC's Robert Hager. Robert, what's the latest there at the FAA?
Tom, you were mentioning about imagining what could have gone on in the cockpits, and really there are two basic scenarios in a hijacking. Either you have the hijacker standing there with a gun at the pilot's head or an explosive device of some kind ordering the pilot to make the maneuvers on the plane, or you have the hijacker actually taking over from the pilot and operating the controls of the plane himself. Now this is all speculative, but just an opinion here. I think to hit a precise target like the World Trade Center there and hit it right on the mark, that in this case you'd have to have the hijacker at the actual controls of the plane, because it's hard for me to imagine how you would force a pilot, even gun at his head or anything else, at the last moment. A single jerk of the plane's equipment could manage to miss the tower of the World Trade Center, perhaps go into the river, or imagine the Pentagon. You could go into a parking lot or an area right around there if you could jerk the yoke of the plane at the last moment. So I'm guessing that it's much more likely that the hijackers somehow disabled the crew and took over the control of these planes. But we may know eventually, because presumably the cockpit voice recorder has survived on each of these 4 airplanes, and the cockpit voice recorder would give you the actual conversation in the cockpit. Sometimes you can't precisely reconstruct what went on from what's being said back and forth, but the cockpit voice recorders of those 4 planes should give you at least everything that was said in the cockpits.
All right, thank you very much, NBC's Robert Hager. We're looking now.
Tom, there's one little bit of information just handed to me. We were talking about how many planes are still in the air. We said all the domestic planes had landed, and we now hear that there are 10 to 12 international flights, all of them bound into the West Coast, so presumably they were on the long Pacific run, or else the even longer Europe to the West Coast run. The 10 to 12 international flights still in the air. That's the last of it. All the domestic flights, as we'd said before, have landed.
All right, thanks, NBC's Robert Hager. We're going to go right now to, here's an update. The NBC affiliate in Omaha, Nebraska says that Air Force One has landed at Offutt Air Force Base, which is the headquarters of the Strategic Air Command. It's just south and east of Omaha. That is a place that the president very likely would go. It could not be more secure. They have a long landing pattern there and clear area all around them, and of course they've got one of the most secure bunkers anywhere in the world. It was the critical part of our Cold War strategy. The Strategic Air Command bunker, as I recall, having been down there, it's about 6 stories beneath the ground, and it is heavily reinforced, and it has all the communications that you can possibly imagine. That, it does appear, is where the president is going to be for the time being, at least, until they sort out whether this wave of attacks is over. The Strategic Air Command is been removed from our consciousness a lot because of the end of the Cold War, but now we know what the consequences are of having one war over and another begin. This is an act of terrorism that has occurred here today. We're going to go to Pat Dawson now as we look at these scenes of what it's like in lower Manhattan. The phrase nuclear winter has been used again and again, and it's not inappropriate. Pat?
No, it's not, Tom. Certainly, I can tell you that when we were standing just about 2 or 3 blocks south of here at that bridge that you can see down there, probably at that point about 6, 7, 8 blocks north of the World Trade Center this morning when that tower went down and the smoke literally billowed and the dust up the avenue. It was precisely like the movies that we have seen. Much of this is like movies. It is very, very hard as a reporter. You know that the first thing you do is reach for something to make a comparison to. And frankly, through much of this, it's almost impossible for me to find things that are a satisfactory comparison. Let us try to find out now as much as we can. This is Inspector Gene Ciccarelli from the Port Authority Police. Inspector, if you can give us some sense at this point of how close you are able to get your rescue units in there.
We've been attempting to get our rescue units into the area. Unfortunately, there are areas that are under possibilities of collapsing. We're still searching a good portion of the perimeter, and as far as going in any further than that, we have to get a clearance to make sure that there is no potential danger for any further collapse that can endanger the rescue operation.
Now, just to explain to the people who may not know this, and certainly people outside New York who don't, there are two towers, or were, to be more accurate, two towers of the World Trade Center complex, yet there are still other fairly large office buildings as part of the complex, correct?
There are other what they call plaza buildings surrounding the two twin towers.
Right, and those are how big?
Some of them range from 20 stories, approximately 20 stories.
By the standards of much of America, that would be a skyscraper, quite frankly.
Well, I wouldn't put them on the
But
level.
still, they're rather large buildings. They're still standing there. Is that part of the threat that you perceive at this point?
Yes, there are those other plaza buildings that we are concerned about and do have the potential of collapsing. So, in answer to your question, it isn't wise to enter into that area at this point.
How would you describe your efforts to organize the rescue effort now, given that we saw a sequence of events this morning, a sequence of crashes, then explosions, and then the collapses? How close are you now, perhaps, to being able to organize an actual rescue effort to go in there and start going through the debris?
We still have, like I said, a concern about going in and initiating a rescue if, in fact, there are other individuals there. We also have a very good operation in place at this time to pool all of our resources together in one staging area. That we have a phenomenal amount of equipment and supplies that would assure us of any efforts that we make to continue with the rescue approach. But at this point, we do have a good group assembled for that purpose.
But at this point, presumably there may be a great number of people in there in need of rescue. Obviously, the problem for you is that if you go in to try to get them out, you put your rescuers in danger.
That's correct.
And no idea of when you might be in a position to actually say, we think it's safe to go in after them now.
No, until we get a firm clearance on that, we won't enter into an area that could be hazardous to people that are attempting to make the rescue.
Inspector, thank you very much for speaking to us. We appreciate it. Tom, the latest from the Port Authority Police here in New York City. As we've explained, they have jurisdiction over the World Trade Center complex. They, of course, are working in cooperation with a number of other police and rescue and fire agencies here, both local and federal, and essentially describing the quandary that they find themselves in, which is rather rare, certainly unique in the sense that we have seen the catastrophe repeatedly. We have seen through the morning 3 or 4 events which would qualify by anyone's description as catastrophes. It has now been probably a good 4 hours since the last one, but yet they still can't go in and begin a serious comprehensive rescue effort because they're worried about what might still be there, what danger might still lurk for the rescuers that have gone in. Tom?
Thank you very much, NBC's Pat Dawson. This terrorist war that has been declared on America today in New York City and Washington, D.C., and psychologically across the country has had such an enormous effect already. It has all but immobilized the largest nation in the world politically. There's been a severe realignment of where people can go and do their jobs in the nation's capital. Dennis Hastert, the House Speaker, was whisked out of his office. The President of the United States, we believe right now, is at the Strategic Air Command headquarters outside of Omaha. We don't know where Vice President Cheney is, except we're told that he's in a secure location. Don Rumsfeld is back at his desk in a more secure location. Secretary of State Colin Powell is on his way back from Peru. Then you have the economic consequences. The largest financial market in the world was shut down today. People were in peril in that immediate vicinity. Businesses across America are doing no business, my guess is. Certainly in the largest cities, so many of them have been shut down. All flights have been grounded at this point, and all baseball games have been suspended. The Seattle Space Needle was shut down. Walt Disney World was evacuated. In California, Knott's Berry Farm was evacuated, and a lot of other theme parks. All national monuments have been evacuated today as well. This country is on hold in shock and horror, and probably the beginning of a great deal of anger and frustration as well. We're told that all planes now that were in the air have landed safely. The domestic flights, there are still some international flights that are yet to come here. We'll have to deal with our shock and grief in the days to come, and there will be a realignment of this country in so many ways, the forms of which we cannot say now, because we're going to have to work this out together, individually, and certainly from our political and our economic institutions. But certainly there will be a change in security and a loss of innocence, especially for young people who have never been through anything quite like this. The most devastating attack since Pearl Harbor, some people saying worse than Pearl Harbor at this time. Let's go to Virginia Chow of NBC News, who was down in the area. Virginia, what was it like?
Well, Tom, you've already heard the unbelievable stories of people who survived, who are much closer to ground zero at the World Trade Center area. I was about 20 blocks north of that, and I witnessed the second tower collapsing. And what I observed, and what was amazing to me, were the reactions of the people as they watched this unfold around them. You have to remember that these are people who were streaming away from that area, who just minutes before were near the building or perhaps even in the building. And as I headed on foot going toward the World Trade Center, this was this morning when there was one tower still remaining. The first one had already collapsed. I was about 20 blocks north of there. There were thousands of people literally streaming toward me on foot, trying to escape that area like refugees from a war zone. I was one of the lone people, other than emergency personnel, heading toward the area when we heard a rumble. People stopped, turned to look, and we watched in horror as the second tower came crashing down on itself. People screaming out, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh no." And immediately, very emotional, people crying in tears, realizing that there were hundreds, maybe thousands of people in and around that building who were going to be either badly hurt or killed. And I think that the emotional impact of this for people, even if they don't know anyone personally down there, has been devastating. Tom?
Thank you very much, Virginia Chow, who is one of the many NBC reporters who have gone beyond the call of duty today in the lower part of Manhattan. There is the scene. It was not a cruise missile. It was not a nuclear attack. It was a hijacked airliner used as a weapon directed at the World Trade Center. The Twin Towers both came down. We know that more than 100 people on the airliners were killed, and an untold number of people were killed or seriously wounded in and around that area. And as you look at these scenes from several hours after the planes hit the building and after the World Trade Center came down, you have some sense of the magnitude of the devastation. Jules Rennell is the manager of the World Trade Club at the World Trade Center. He, fortunately for him, was not there today. Mr. Rennell, how many people would be in the building, in your judgment, at 8:45 in the morning?
This is a News 4 special report.
We are interrupting briefly to try to keep you abreast of the events happening locally in our area today, where the Pentagon was one of the subjects of terrorist attacks.
Fire and rescue crews from all over our area are on the scene at the Pentagon right now, trying to put out the fire there and help the victims who have been injured and killed. Let's go live to Sarah Lee at the Virginia Hospital Center, or used to be Arlington Hospital, where some of the injured from the Pentagon have been taken. Sarah?
Doreen, Jim, I'm told at last count about 30 patients have been brought here to Virginia Hospital Center, varying in degrees of their injuries and their conditions. Joining me right now live, however, is Catherine Hughes with Virginia Hospital Center. Thank you so much for joining us for this update. At this point, could you just talk to me about the hospital personnel that are in place for this disaster situation?
Sure. We have made sure to have a full staff here. We've called in anyone that's been on call. We probably have over 100 nurses that are here and prepared to take care of any patients, as well as over 50 of our physicians are here and are ready to take care of any patients. We have taken care of 30 at this point and do expect to see more.
As you do expect to see more, have any patients been diverted? Do you expect any may have to be diverted as you get more and more patients here?
We have not diverted any patients at this time. We are fully prepared to take whatever load may come, and so I don't think at this point we'll need to divert.
Earlier I was speaking with the assistant director of the emergency department. He did also say that he headed up the disaster team here at the hospital. Could you explain exactly what that is?
We have a team that's a multidisciplinary team of all individuals that are important to handling a crisis or a disaster. We do practice drills throughout the year to make sure we're prepared for anything like this, and I would say that the team has pulled together and has done an extraordinary job today in this issue of a crisis.
And with so many patients coming in with varying degrees of medical problems, obviously the need for blood is great. What should we be telling people in terms of donating blood and how they can help the hospitals?
Absolutely. They would be greatly appreciated if they can go to the American Red Cross. They are the ones that are accepting blood. At this point, we're not in a crisis type of situation, but they have been able to supply us with blood in the event that we do need that. 1-800-GIVE-BLOOD would be the number for them to call to get to the location where they can give blood.
Great, thank you very much. Catherine Hughes with Virginia Hospital Centers. Now, again, there are 30 patients that have been brought here to Virginia Hospital Centers from the Pentagon situation. 13 of those patients have been admitted here. 6 have been discharged, mostly suffering from blasts, smoke inhalation, burns, some people having fractures to their extremities, their arms, their legs. We were told, however, by the assistant chair of the emergency department that 8 people are in intensive care right now, 4 on ventilators. And he did tell us that those conditions are life-threatening. Let's hear what he had told us earlier.
We've seen a variety of injuries. I guess a lot of those we've seen are typically associated with a blast-type injuries. We've seen a lot of smoke inhalation injuries, and those people have been some of the sickest folks here. We've also seen some fractures of the extremities, also burns to the face and hands. Those have been the primary injuries we've seen.
And just about 10 minutes ago, before you came back to us here at Arlington, a Virginia Bloodmobile did pull up, and they did wheel in about 2 cases, it looked like, of blood into the emergency room. And the hospital did confirm for us that that blood was brought in for this disaster situation. So again, the need for blood is great. So for anyone who's watching this and wants to help in any way, contact the American Red Cross and do give blood, because it certainly will be needed beyond today, well into the week, as long as people are still suffering from those injuries. Sarah Lee live in Arlington. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Sarah Lee. On the matter of blood, let's talk with Dr. Jean Lamadou. She's with the Inova Blood Bank. Dr. Lamadou, are you there?
Yes, I am.
What is the situation now in terms of the need for blood?
The need for blood is quite great. Currently, we are collecting blood from all types of donors. We are going to be supplying our hospitals in the metropolitan D.C. area that need blood on first. But then if we get a request from any New York hospitals or any other hospitals that are affected that need our blood, we would ship to them secondarily.
Dr. Lamadou, I spoke on the phone earlier with someone who called to say they have been trying to call the Red Cross and can't get through. They want to know if there's some place that people can go to donate blood.
Our facility is located at 3289 Woodburn Road in Annandale, Virginia. It is on the corner of Woodburn and Gallows Road. We are staying open indefinitely. In addition, Inova Blood Donor Services has a location at the CenterMed location on Route 28 in Centerville in Virginia, and we are open there as well.
Okay, Dr. Lamadou, we were told earlier that people should wait until tomorrow if they want to donate blood. What about that?
Well, we are currently taking donors. We're staying open around the clock. We are doing all of our testing and necessary processing around the clock. We have no plans right now to close until the patient's needs are met. And donate tomorrow if you can. Donate this evening. Right now, our donors probably have a 2 to 3 hour wait. If you want to come back in the evening, that's perfectly fine. But please donate.
All right, and Dr. Lamadou, I believe that the Red Cross is suggesting that people wait until tomorrow to donate blood, and certainly it would not be a good idea for anybody to go to a hospital at this today to try to help by donating blood.
We've had an outpouring of volunteers. People always want to help out in these sorts of situations. If you're a medical personnel assigned to a hospital, it's kind of a different story. But sometimes hospitals and medical facilities can't always use untrained volunteers to do anything except simple tasks.
They're in a crisis mode right now, anticipating more victims coming in from the Pentagon. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Jean Lamadou, talking with us about the blood donation situation. We want to go next to Mary Alice Salinas. She has been covering the situation at Dulles Airport, where it has been very, very quiet since they evacuated the airport earlier. Mary Alice, what's going on there now?
Doreen, I want to let you know that we have seen FBI agents here just in the last hour. They've been going to ticket counters at different airlines here, talking with employees. We have some video of 3 agents at this particular point. They were talking with some employees at the northwest counter. They seem to be they were asking questions of this employee or apparent employee. This person was getting onto the computer system, getting information, relaying that to FBI agents. He also disappeared into a back room, came back out, offered more information. Then the FBI agents went off to other ticket counters. We understand that they were at an American Airlines ticket counter earlier today. Of course, this is where the flight that crashed in the Pentagon started. American Airlines Flight 77 headed here from Washington Dulles to Los Angeles. There were 58 passengers on board that flight, 6 crew members. Airport authorities are also telling us that any loved ones of the people on board Flight 77 are being sent to the Dulles Marriott near here to get information. They have set something up there for the moment. So we still have military aircraft going overhead every once in a while. We have FBI agents inside. I also want to mention that these concrete barriers went up pretty quickly this morning after all this started happening. There are a series of concrete barriers around Washington Dulles right now. So that is the situation right here. Family members are being sent once again to the Marriott Hotel nearby. Doreen, back to you.
All right, Mary Alice Salinas reporting live from Dulles Airport. Dulles is closed. Reagan National Airport is closed. BWI is closed. Every airport in America is closed right now, and we are being told that all domestic flights in this country are grounded until at least noon tomorrow.
Mayor Williams went before the microphones a short time ago to declare a state of emergency in the District of Columbia. Here's more of what the mayor had to say.
Our first priority is to be able to respond effectively to the emergency situations as they arise. To that end, and to ensure that we have the highest level of preparedness, I have declared a state of emergency in the District of Columbia so that emergency vehicles can move throughout our neighborhoods, and so that in the event of an incident here in the district, we are fully prepared. I'm also communicating regularly with the White House and have the full support of our federal emergency agencies, as well as the cooperation of the D.C. National Guard. I'd like to ask our citizens to remain calm and to work with us to get vehicles off the street as quickly as possible. Unless you are emergency personnel, medical and public safety professionals, unless you have some specific business of picking your kids up from school or the like, please stay at home. We're also working...
All right, D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams declaring a state of emergency. If you don't need to be out on the roads in the city today and tonight, don't go out. The D.C. National Guard has been mobilized so that they can be called upon to help in whatever way needed in the city right now. Also, as you just heard the mayor saying, he's requesting that people stay indoors unless you need to be out. Do not go out. Don't make any trips that are not absolutely essential. Stay home and stay tuned for further information on what you should do in this situation.
Earlier today, federal offices were evacuated, and the federal government was, in effect, shut down. There was a lot of traffic on the streets of Washington and its near environs at that time. James Adams is in downtown Washington right now. James, what's the situation now?
Well, we're at about 15th and Constitution, and as the day has worn on, the security zone that has been established pretty much from the White House out has been pressed further and further out in each direction. As you can see, taking a look down 15th Street, it is now an empty street where there were barricades. There are now police cars, and that situation is basically being mirrored on 15th Street, 17th Street, 19th Street. We went over to E, D Street. All of them have been closed down. The national monuments, of course, have been shut down. Flags are now flying at half staff, as you can see, and very much to our west, going down Connecticut Avenue, there is also a platoon now of officers where you would normally enter the ellipse area. They are now stationed there. Within the last hour, the people who were on the other side of Constitution Avenue were forced back once again. So the perimeter, once again, of security has been widened. There are also officers walking around. Their guns are out, shotguns. We've seen some with rifles. And basically, behind me, it is nearly a ghost town. A very sharp contrast to what we saw this morning.
James Adams, thank you, James. Dan Tagliani with the D.C. Department of Public Works is standing by now at the Reeves Center. He is making an address.
Based on the decision about schools, about the federal government, about local government, as to when and how our transportation system will operate beyond this point. But right now, again, the only closures are key Memorial and 14th Street bridges inbound. All other bridges are open, and only in the area immediately surrounding the White House. I'll give you the perimeter: Constitution Avenue, I Street, 14th Street, and 18th Street. Those streets around the White House and the area in the middle are also closed in defense of the White House. Right now, though, just again based on aerial survey, our traffic cameras and pavement sensors, traffic seems to be moving well around the city.
If I could, are there any other questions at this moment? If I cannot give you the update on the number of people at this point. This is all very preliminary information. I think that we need to wait until we have a little more coming out of our sources from the Pentagon. It's several people that we've been told have been transported to local hospitals and to the burn center. I think the number was 7 or 8 to the burn center and several others. I don't know the number to local Northern Virginia hospitals near the Pentagon. If I could, we've been joined today by the Mayor of Los Angeles, Jim Hahn, who would like to take this moment to say a few words.
I'm Jim Hahn, Mayor of Los Angeles. As you know, at least 2, maybe 3 of the planes that were hijacked and crashed were destined to arrive in Los Angeles. And so this tragedy is touching people all over the country, as we know. My heart certainly goes out to the victims and the victims' families in New York City and those injured here in Washington, D.C., but also families who were touched all over America by this tragedy. We certainly hope that as Americans that we come together at this time and stand united in our resolve to overcome these terrible acts and also to reaffirm our commitment to our freedom. In Los Angeles this morning, early on, the city Emergency Operations Center was activated. Los Angeles Police Department went on full tactical alert. As you heard a while ago, the Los Angeles International Airport was evacuated. The City Hall of Los Angeles has been closed to ordinary business. It's being occupied only by essential personnel now who are needed at City Hall for today. I've been in contact this morning with LA Police Chief Bernard Parks, our City Council President Alex Padilla, and I'm actively monitoring the situation. I was able to listen in on the Emergency Operations Board meeting. Sounds like we are taking all necessary precautions in Los Angeles, in all public buildings. A number of the buildings in downtown Los Angeles. The taller buildings have voluntarily decided to close for the day. Certainly those of us who are from Los Angeles, I know there's a lot of families who were expecting to meet their loved ones at LA International Airport. I certainly am offering my assistance and the city to all of those families in anything that we can do for them.
Mayor Hahn, what were you doing here in the district?
Well, I was here meeting with, scheduled to meet with Secretary of Housing and Urban Development to talk about housing issues in Los Angeles, transportation issues, and education issues with the Secretary of Education, and to meet with our congressional delegation. I was meeting with Ruben Barales, who is the White House liaison to local government, intergovernmental affairs director when this tragic story broke. And then
the mayor of Los Angeles, who is speaking to us from the Reeves Center, he is here and in fact cannot get home because there are no flights back home.
He's exemplary of a whole lot of Americans right now who would very much like to get home. I'm sure he'd like to get home and get to his command center in his city. And like so many Americans, nobody is traveling. Well, flights are grounded until at least until noon tomorrow. We want to share with you some phone numbers. People are having trouble communicating. Phone lines are a problem. But as they assess what has happened at the Pentagon and as they try to figure out the casualties that they have there, the Navy is asking all on-duty Navy and Marine workers who were in the Pentagon when that explosion happened this morning to please call and report their status right away. These workers should call this number, 877-663-6772. That's Navy and Marine workers who were in the Pentagon this morning. Call 877-663-6772. That is only for Navy and Marine workers who were in the Pentagon this morning. No one else should call that line.
Family and friends who need information about United Airlines flights, two of which were involved in the terrorist attacks today, are invited to call 800-932-8555. Information is also posted for United Airlines on its website at www.united.com.
Two of the hijacked flights this morning were American airline flights, including Flight 77 that left Dulles headed for Los Angeles this morning. American Airlines has a hotline for friends and families to use to get information about those two American airline flights. That number is 800-245-0999. Again, that's 800-245-0999.